In this video, we're going to explore the state of the global economy and whether the sky is truly falling, and I'm going to tell you what you should really be focusing on during these uncertain times. Now, while headlines scream about economic instability, there's something the media is not really covering that will soon become a crisis. I'm going to take a wide view of the economic woes filling the headline and let you know what you can expect with certainty, but we're also going to take a look at the biggest driver of economic health, maybe by the end of this decade. And that's a problem that we have to reckon with now. At the end of the video, I'm also going to tell you what you can do and what I'm doing today for a more robust, personal, secure future. So stick around for that, and we're going to explore this a little more. Download the Prepper's Recession-Proof Economic Collapse Guide today. I'll post a link in the description and comments section below, or visit cityprepping.com/moneyprep for a free guide to help you start recession-proofing your life and emerging even stronger when the economy recovers. If you're new to this channel, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness, aka prepping. Sometimes we do a breakout video like this, where we'll delve into a topic that may be grabbing the headlines. And I'm recording this video early in August, and the news has been reporting the wild drops the markets are experiencing the last several days. And this situation, it really warrants closer attention because it threatens our security. So is the dramatic sell-off and the downturn in economies around the world an indicator of something bigger, more inflation, or even a recession? Or is it something that we might be focusing on too much and really missing the bigger picture? I think that's the case here. So let's start off this discussion by looking at what's going on now. What's happened? Global markets just experienced a sudden downturn, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropping 1,000 points, echoing Japan's worst market crash since 1987. Warren Buffett, he significantly reduced his stakes in Apple and Bank of America, really indicating his supposition that there would be rising market risk. Now, Buffett's move to half his Apple stake and hold $277 billion in cash really suggests high market risk. And throughout 2024, investor sentiment has fluctuated between frustration over slow economic growth and optimism about declining inflation. But recent unsettling economic data triggered a negative shift. Now, the U.S. stocks lost over $2 trillion, with major indexes and cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin plunging. And the tech-driven bull market is being reevaluated, and Nvidia lost over $1.2 trillion in value. If you look at just that information, there are counter arguments that you need to consider. For example, Nvidia has been leading the tech sector boom lately because of its strong position in the development and implementation of artificial intelligence, and it was trading at 5 times its value of 2 years ago. Now, expecting it to correct, it's reasonable, especially in a climate where people are jumping to safer, more predictable bets. Now, investor sentiment is driven by greed and fear, and plenty of uncertainty fuels that. And Buffett shifting to more secure investments during these times, well, that's just what Buffett does. In many markets, they cycle together, so it's reasonable to assume that other markets will dip when Japan's market suffers. And the spark for much of the declines in ill sentiment was the U.S. job numbers, but I don't see that as a singular reason to panic. A rapid rise in U.S. unemployment to 4.3%. It signals potential recession, though some see it as an economic transition. This can also be put into perspective when you zoom out on it. It was only a monthly increase of 0.2 of a percentage point from 4.1%, and it is only 1.2 percentage points above July of last year. And that's the highest unemployment rate since October of 2021, though it's still a historically low figure. And when you look at the chart from 1963 to 2024, it really puts into perspective how minor this adjustment really is. So that's not going to calm the nerves of market makers when all the other factors are taken into consideration. They're still going to hedge their bets by pulling away from stocks and putting their money into more stable investments like bonds, real estate, CDs, or even precious metals. You can also see in the data and money flowing in and out of sectors. And this investor uncertainty and their money flow is also apparent when we look at the recent gain in fear indexes. All right, so that was a lot to cover. So when we assess the seriousness of a potential financial crisis or looming recession, we have to remember that we're less than 100 days also from a presidential election. And both sides are going to vigorously spin the facts to win votes and stir up emotions. And in such a charged atmosphere, it's easy to overlook the important issues, which I'll discuss later, and to get caught up in the fear of impending recession. The only real certainty from all of that is that inflation will certainly continue to rise. And I'm not denying the possibility of a future recession. It's an inevitable part of economic cycles. And we're going to evaluate that further later. But there's another critical factor that you have to consider. And finally, the Federal Reserve's decision to maintain high interest rates and Japan's unexpected rate hike disrupting the global carry trade led to widespread asset sell-offs. Many financial experts and investors, they anticipate the Fed will cut interest rates in its September meeting. However, with that meeting just 7 weeks away, some economists now speculate that the Fed could announce an emergency rate cut before then due to growing recession fears. And the mere coverage of this can cause broad fluctuations in the markets. Economists, they'll remain divided on whether the market reaction was overblown, but concerns about further financial fallout, they do persist. Should we be concerned? Okay, that's a lot of information. And I'm filming this video on Tuesday, August the 6th, but the Dow futures are already rebounding while we put this video together to film. And likely by the time this video is released in a few days, many of those losses are going to be showing signs of recovery and reallocation. And though the sell-offs, they were dramatic, they seem to be moving north again, regaining some of their losses. And that should indicate that this was more of an adjustment than a bottomless pit. But economies, they're fluid, and this doesn't have the signs of a major crash on the horizon. There are a lot of indicators that we're on at least a downward slope and trend, but is it enough to claim the sky is falling and recession is imminent? Look, I'll be honest, I don't know what's enough and what's not enough. I don't think anyone does at this point. It's really too early to tell, and we haven't been at this point before, despite comparisons to previous years and recessions. I can say with certainty that at the very least, inflation is a guarantee. We're already seeing some items being priced so high that they're squeezing the last dollars out of our wallets. And whether that's food, rent, or utilities, the costs, they keep going up, leaving many to wonder how they're going to make ends meet. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, how does a potential recession relate to prepping, which we cover on this channel? I'll tell you. When you prepare, when you prep, you're not only preparing for that future potential major and minor disasters that could come, but you're also incorporating prepping into your everyday life to make you really less apt to succumb to the ups and downs of life, be they recessions or sudden storms and power outages. And if you're prepping properly, there are solutions that you can already plug into the recession-proof your life. And those same solutions will prep you against a sudden medical expense or job loss. So if you're worried about a recession, I'll drop a link to our free financial guide in the comments and description section below. In that guide, you're going to find different strategies and tactics that you can deploy today that will make these market oscillations and adjustments far less scary or impactful on your life. And what you might have missed in the news cycle and missed the attention given to big investors is a far greater influence on our global economic picture. There are other, more significant problems looming in our future that will add momentum to this downward trend over the next several months and years. And from a prepper's perspective, these issues will weigh heavily on our economies and our lives. So let me explain, and you can decide for yourself. First, there's no denying that economies are being propped up, even as deficits continue to rise and the value of the dollar declines. And for years, even decades, we've been warned that the national debt would eventually have consequences. And we can't live continually on credit. The U.S. national debt is rising by almost $1 trillion approximately every 100 days. And the U.S. debt, which is the amount of money the federal government borrows to cover operating expenses, now stands at the time of recording this video at over 35.1 trillion U.S. dollars. And it's not just in America, where national economies are showing significant fractures. China, they can't sustain themselves on vacant real estate and high-speed rails. Russia can't depend on oil and natural gas sales while invading neighboring countries. And the majority of major economies are not thriving and don't seem likely to thrive in the near future. So all these factors, when you take them together, they don't guarantee a global recession. There are too many variables to consider, from global conflicts to elections to consumer confidence to the weather. And if they guarantee anything, it's inflation. You're going to continue to pay more and even more for the basics. To me, these signs of economic fragility, signs that things might be reaching a boiling point, signs of a looming recession, or the rises and cuts in interest rates from the Fed or national banks, they really all pale in comparison to the long-term food forecasts. And ignoring that would be perilous. The bigger threat. So there's a much bigger threat and drag on future economies than anything we've really seen play out over the last few days. In fact, recent events in the news are, I would consider, minor compared to the long, slow approaching threat of weather-related crop failures, which could severely impact food supplies and economies worldwide. Now, according to one study, corn crop yields are projected to decline by 24% by 2030. And typically such shifts, they're manageable, allowing farmers to adapt by changing their crops. But we don't usually see fluctuations totaling almost a quarter of global production. And we can't outplant that by shifting crops or outscience it by developing heat-tolerant strains. Now, additionally, major wheat production is threatened in Ukraine, and rice yields are declining in India and China due to extended periods of extreme heat. When we examine these predictions more closely, there's serious cause for concern. The estimates are that rising temperatures could reduce corn yields in tropical regions by 1.5 bushels per acre for each day above 95 degrees Fahrenheit during pollination and grain fill, with hot, dry winds further impacting pollen and tassels. Now, this downward trend could lead to complete crop failures, especially as we experience more days over 95 degrees Fahrenheit, many even reaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Last year alone, there were 47 days above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, up from 8 from the previous year. This year, we've already had 55 such days, and summer's not even over yet. In the tropics, conditions are even worse, as seen with the unprecedented heat dome over India. And with an average yield of 175 bushels per acre, a loss of 1.5 bushels per acre per day can force many farmers to abandon corn crops. Now, high heat results in reduced pollination, accelerated but non-typical plant development, increased water stress, and greater disease and pest pressure. Now, this affects not only the food supply, but also the feed supply and the energy sector. Now, unfortunately, temperatures are really only expected to keep rising. And by the end of the century, predictions suggest that places like even Oklahoma will have over 100 days a year above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Phoenix around 163, and half the country well over 50 such days. Two solutions. So while recent market declines and investor fears dominate headlines, the true looming threat not making enough headlines is the impact of extreme weather on future global food supplies. I would encourage you not to lose sight of that story. Crop failures will not only lead to food shortages, but also drive significant economic downturns and recessions. And this issue will have a far more significant and more prolonged effect on our global economic stability than the current market fluctuations. Now, that being said, there are solutions to all these problems that we provide. You can start with the recession guide, which I'll link to below. And I would encourage you to pay a special attention to the sections on food, growing, preparing, and cooking it. And that should be your starting point to really lessen the impact of both these current market fluctuations and the long-term forecast of food scarcity in the future. And understanding from the headlines that a recession is possible and that crop failures and stories about them will be the true future drivers of economic declines, these are some of the steps that I'm personally taking. As I've mentioned many times on the channel over the last several weeks, I just purchased land to create a lab to really showcase various things that we talk about all the time on this channel. I just needed more space to allow me to create various environments to replicate what a lot of my viewers have on their own houses, properties, or whatever it is you have. What we're going to do with the land is we're going to break it up into various parts to show gardening, rain harvesting, renewable energy, and so many other skills that will be critical to survive the coming challenges on the horizon. Now, additionally, I'm currently consulting with a PhD scientist who works with the USDA to help farmers modify and prepare their crops for these problems that we're already facing with temperature changes that are impacting our food supply. She's going to be helping me build out what we plant on the new property, and we're going to use the information from consulting with her to help you, the community, understand as well how to factor in what you're going to plant in these coming years. I've gotten so many comments and emails recently from you, the community, that your food production has been severely impacted just this year due to heat, and what we're witnessing, if the trend continues, is only going to get more challenging. And the economy, it's going to ebb and flow, stutter step, and then have decent gains. And I don't really see that collapsing. It could, but at least in the near future, so we can, I think, put that fear aside as a primary concern for now, but obviously it could change. And I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't tell you with any degree of certainty what will happen next. But as I always try to do on this channel, I try to caution you to stay calm before you freak out. But I would encourage you to take from these recent events the fact that the economic road ahead will be difficult. You need to understand that inflation, it's going to continue, recessions are possible, and that you should approach your finances like any other prep. And as you do that, I would encourage you, don't lose sight of the much bigger indicator of our future economic health and the threats to our food supply. I would encourage you to plug in solutions now for both of these problems. You can start by watching these two videos that I'm going to link to right here on the side of the screen and also down in the comments and description section. One is about recession-proofing your life, which will help you in immediate threat. And the other is on the coming global crop failures and solutions that you can implement today. As always, stay safe out there.